This is the solar system, something that's extremely unique throughout the universe. But you have to know, around 40 light years away from us, basically right next door in the distances of the universe, there is a star system that astronomers believe that could hold life. TRAPPIST-1e. Let's compare TRAPPIST-1e to our solar system. The star in the middle of the solar system, basically our sun, is a normal star in the universe. But the star in the center of TRAPPIST-1e is a red dwarf, so it's much smaller, much dimmer, and it's a little bit bigger than Jupiter. This is why they call it a dwarf. It's much smaller than an ordinary star, but it has some positive, which we'll get to. Some scientists speculate that red dwarfs could live trillions of years on end, while a normal star like our sun could survive for about 10 billion years. That's an insane time, but compared to a red dwarf, it's nothing. And you already know that our sun is about 4.6 billion years old, so it's still pretty young. Even though it's possible for life to exist around a red dwarf, but it's rarer than a normal star, because the Goldilocks zone or the habitable zone around a red dwarf has to be much closer to the star. And that means if it's a little too close, it will be tidal locked to the star. That means one side of the planet is always facing the sun, which is very hot and dry, while the other side is permanently night, and it's extremely cold and freezing. You guys should be familiar with solar flares. Basically, these massive explosions that happen on a star, and they throw out these massive flares that could potentially hit planets. And it does. These flares have radiation and are extremely dangerous for atmospheres and living beings. You might say, what about Earth? How is Earth safe? It's because the magnetic field around Earth is pretty strong and it could withstand the solar flares that come from the sun. And that means living beings on planet Earth are safe. Like for example, when you go to the International Space Station, you are outside the atmosphere. You're in space, and that means all that solar flare and radiation is hitting you inside the International Space Station. There's nothing you can do. There's no special suit that could prevent this from happening. Whenever an astronaut enters space, they are accepting that they will be hit with this type of radiation. But let's get back to TRAPPIST-1e. The solar flares on a red dwarf is not that much less than a normal star, especially since the planets are much closer to the host star. But TRAPPIST-1e is more unique than you think, because there's 7 planets around it, and 6 out of the 7 planets are in the habitable Goldilocks zone, something that could not be said about our solar system, because only planet Earth is in the Goldilocks zone. TRAPPIST-1e is an extremely small star system, because its diameter is only 9 million kilometers. And that's in a way the solar system is much more massive. The distance between our sun and Mercury, which is the first planet, is 58 million kilometers. That means if you put TRAPPIST-1e in its entirety in the middle of Mercury and the sun, you still have 49 million kilometers of empty space. But let's see what's going on the 7 planets that orbit this star. The first planet is called the TRAPPIST-1b. Just like Earth, this is a rocky planet, and it's a little bit bigger than planet Earth. And it has an atmosphere, but it's not an atmosphere you're used to, because it's primarily made of carbon dioxide, and it's extremely thick. And that means there is no way that life could exist on this planet. It's also very close to the host star, only 1.7 million kilometers, or 5 times the distance between Earth and the Moon. Another interesting fact is that every 36 hours on this planet is 1 year. The next planet is the TRAPPIST-1e, and just like the first one, it's not very far from the host star, only 2.4 million kilometers. This is also a rocky planet. It's 20% bigger than Earth, and it also has more gravity. This planet also has a very thick CO2 atmosphere. Just like the first one, there's no life here either. The next planet is TRAPPIST-1d. This is only 1 million kilometers away from C, so 3.4 million from the star. 1 year on this planet is extremely short, 97 hours. This planet is much smaller than Earth, only 70%, and that means its gravity is a little bit weaker as well. Scientists say on the first 2 planets there's no way life exists, but on the planet 1d there is a chance, because it's a planet that has oceans. And you know what that means? When there's water on a planet, there's always a chance for life to exist, just like how life began on planet Earth. Well, let's go see the next planet. TRAPPIST-1e. TRAPPIST-1e is only 4.4 million kilometers away from the star, but you can probably find the best life or the best chance of life on this planet. Each year on 1e is 146 hours, and the best part is that its size is damn near the same as Earth, meaning at 91%, and its gravity is also very similar as well. The temperature is very similar to planet Earth, but its light is much less because it's a red dwarf and it only has 60% of the brightness we have here on Earth. But in terms of temperature, it's a little bit colder than Earth, but it's enough to hold life. But the best news about this planet is that its atmosphere is mainly made up of hydrogen, and that's why TRAPPIST-1e is known as the second Earth, or Earth 2.0, because it's one of the best exoplanets humans has ever found that's similar to planet Earth. The atmosphere, the distance, the temperature, the size, the gravity allows 1e to have oceans, seas, poles, and maybe even life. After TRAPPIST-1e, you have 3 other ones, F, G, and H. F and G are still in the Goldilocks zone, but they're near the edge, so it's much colder. That means the chance of life is much lower here. And H is completely out of the Goldilocks zone. That's why astronomers still believe that TRAPPIST-1e has the highest chance of life that's near us. It's interesting to know, one of the main objectives of James Webb was to research the TRAPPIST-1 star system. James Webb has already examined TRAPPIST-1b and it has figured a lot of stuff out. But figuring this stuff out takes a lot of time, and it's going to basically study the entire system, and when it gets to 1e, that's when it's going to get interesting. You might ask, how can you live right next to a red dwarf? It's interesting to know that astronomers believe it's the most stable way of life to live near a red dwarf. And trillions of years into the future, all living things will most likely be living next to red dwarfs when all the normal stars have already died. These stars could live for trillions of years, and they give the same amount of energy and light. Just imagine this planet has living beings, and it's very close, only 40 light years away. And that means if we have a spacecraft that could go that speed, we will reach it in 40 years. That seems ridiculous, but humans can always dream.